Hey, how are you? I am Chris Robin, aka at Detroit Beastie, here with Dave Eddy at Corporal Eddie. And if you didn't know, the Beastie, hate to talk in the third person, is not even back. He's here for the first time with Fantasy Six Pack, not only for this little broadcast we've got put together, but for the entire season. You're going to get bottom of the barrel. You're going to get a lot of Dave, his little one-offs, his homerism stuffs. We're both from the same city, both from the same state, so we love the Lions. Try and keep that off to the side a little bit and focus on some content. But I'm excited to be here. I'm so excited that Dave was like, hey, I'm just going to throw you, not to the Wolves, but can you do the opening? And boom, here we are. So Dave, thanks for basically, in a weird way, if instead of DFS and broadcasting, if we were in a world of spies, you would have kind of like pulled me in because we know the process. I pull the curtain back. I tell folks just about everything, and not my future per se, but just the idea of what I wanted to do for this football season was up in the air. And you befriended me. Like, hey, we're from the same state, and then at the 11th hour, you go, why don't you just come here with Fantasy Six Pack? And I said, you know what, that makes the most sense. He goes, hey, why don't we broadcast a little early, give a little, tidbits and whatnot about the football week one. And so here we are. Dave, thanks for having me. That was a long opening, but hey, you tossed it to me, and here we are.
Well, I mean, I'm really happy to have you on board. I don't think I could have handpicked somebody that I'd rather work with more than you, for a whole variety of reasons. We have so much in common; it's not even funny. But yeah, man, my 8 years of the Marine Corps kind of came in handy. I kind of snuck around a little bit and grabbed myself a beastie. Very excited. Was very excited here to do this show as well when DraftKings pricing comes out so early. I know a lot of us degenerates get super excited that we can go in and kind of start, tinkering around with some lineups and start looking at stuff. And it's fun. And as soon as the pricing was out, within 5 minutes, I had built a lineup that is pretty irrelevant, but it was still fun to, get back on the bike, if you will. So very excited to be doing these videos with you. I think we'll have a lot of good stuff to bring up here as we just kind of dive in a little bit and talk about, the pricing that we have, at least for DraftKings. I know FanDuel doesn't have it yet. They need to kind of get their shit together. But for DraftKings, we can talk pricing specific. You can kind of probably guess a little bit, at least give some ideas about FanDuel. But I'm ready to just hop right into things, man. What about you?
Yeah, before we get started to the meat of the show, make sure you go to the Fantasy Six Pack Discord. Right now, Dave can speak to it. I've just joined not too long ago. If you're into any sort of DFS, and right now the only game in town is MLB, and we both kind of toss our thoughts around. I share my notes. I don't know why, but people love to see my handwritten work. To be honest with you, Dave, that's started just for me, right? And then I share a couple photos, and people go nuts for it. So to me, surrounded by pens and paper, make sure you go to the Fantasy Six Pack Discord. A lot going on there, and right now you can get in for free. There's a couple lock channels, not too much that would kind of deter you from even wanting to be a part of that. You could tag Dave, you could tag me. We have a ton of questions there for fantasy stuff, redraft, seasonal, best ball. You got Dave and I there to cover DFS. So when you're done watching the broadcast, go over to the Fantasy Six Pack Discord, and that's where putting our feet up. When I get in bed at night, I sit in bed, I put a baseball game on, and I just chat on Discord. So to be fair, aside from our Twitter handles, Discord is probably the easiest way to get a hold of any one of us or anybody at the Six Pack, if you have a favorite, if you have something like that. So Dave, I'll toss it back to you. We're going to talk about quarterbacks, and I love the idea of basically every or any DFS broadcast I've ever done, the format really never changes. You go quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends, some defense, and if you want to throw in some, some over under stuff, that's fine. But what I was getting at is the idea of guessing some price tags on FanDuel. As you mentioned already, they don't have anything out. The only thing available on FanDuel for football right now is excuse me, there's a football game, if I'm not mistaken, Thursday in Canton. The Jets are playing the Browns preseason. It's going to be all scrubs. The main guys aren't going to be dressing for that, but it's still something us degenerates, you mentioned it first, that we can gamble on. So if you want to get on that, you could be able to find us on Twitter at the Discord. But let's talk about week one. There's so much going down in this week, and I'm going to leave the obvious one to the obvious game to you if you want to talk about it briefly. But let's talk about some quarterbacks real quick. Dave, who's got your sights set on so far?
I mean, I plan on focusing this year on cash, and that's going to be fantastic because BC over here is an MME beast. And as much as I love it, it's a little too time consuming for me sometimes. And I've done so well with cash the last couple years that I really want to focus on that. So when it comes to cash quarterbacks, just in a nutshell, I really do like guys that have some legs, guys that can give me some points on the ground as well. And that's not a big revelation. I'm not, breaking the mold here at all. But, so I usually I'm looking, at or near the top of the pricing structure here because that's usually where these guys live. So, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields, those are literally 1, 2, 3 in salary. Starting at 8,000 on Lamar, 7,800 on Hurts, 7,700 on Fields. So that's kind of the archetype that I'm looking for a cash quarterback. Cash wise, I'm not super worried about stacking. If it naturally kind of works out that way, I'm very happy to do that with running back, or I'm sorry, with wide receiver, tight end. I guess it could be an occasional running back in the right situation. But those are kind of the guys that I'm most looking at. If I'm not going to do that, if I'm not paying up for a quarterback, then that means I'm going to pay way down. And in week one, it's often said that, in the first and last week of the season, there can be a lot of advantages to have because we don't, in the first week of the season, we don't have stats and data to really rely on. It's kind of it's a touch and feely kind of game here. Last week of the season, it's mayhem. You get so many guys sitting out. But that's kind of my thoughts for week one and a cash perspective. Real quick, what are you thinking about here?
Well, to be fair, it's no secret. I would say I would even take that a step further in terms of we all know the last week of the season's mayhem, right? Depending on playoff pictures, and we're talking way past Christmas, after Halloween, Thanksgiving, and all that. But we're still in the summer here. But when you look, I say the same thing holds true for like the first, 3 or 4, maybe stretches even into the week 5 of the NFL season, because you're going to get a lot every year for like the last. Now how popular DFS is and sports betting in general, you get a lot of people that are so fired up and they go all in the first few weeks of the season. Then they kind of settle back into their seasonal teams, right? And then that meat of the season, let's just say week 6 to like week 12, you get a little bit lower of a lot of action on DFS. And then once they're out of it in their seasonal teams, they're back with DFS. Like that's the whole predicated on building DFS, is you can get around all that nonsense. But when we look at quarterbacks, the first few weeks of the season are literally a toss-up. And when you talk about a GPP, it always is a toss-up. There's something going on in Denver that I like when you look at the whole 10,000 foot view looking down. Granted, it's early. Last time I'll say it on this broadcast, but what's going on in Denver? Sean Payton is there. There's been some bad blood as of late with him and Aaron Rodgers. We know Sean Payton, the new head coach in Denver, is a wild man offensively in terms of how he likes to scheme up plays and go from there. And when you look at Denver, Tim Patrick already out. That's a bummer. If I'm not mistaken, they recently cut KJ Hamler. So Russ Wilson supposedly was supposed to be their savior last year, and they were in the toilet pretty quick, pretty fast. I don't think it had anything to do with Russ Wilson. What was so drastic of a change going from Seattle to Denver, and boom, here we are with Sean Payton at the helm, with Javonte back healthy and moving. I like Russ Wilson in week 1 moving forward, and I'm going to stack him. Maybe I'll wait for that portion, but give me Russ Wilson in week 1. And when you look at Lamar, Hurts, and Fields, I think we will be able to get Russ Wilson. And again, these are guesses. That's what I think makes it so fun. There we go. We're with Beastie on this side and Corporal Eddie on that side.
Just notice.
When we look at Russ Wilson, you're going to get on FanDuel, at least, that the most expensive quarterback will probably be Jalen Hurts or excuse me, Fields or Lamar Jackson, and they're going to be in that $9,800 kind of range. I think Russ Wilson's going to be like 7,500 in week 1. And I love that. Again, moving down, I love Desmond Ridder this season at Atlanta. Played a little bit as a rookie. They really tanked that Matt Ryan. That signing was bad news. But now Desmond Ridder, and if you look, you could go anywhere right now and click his profile, and it'll say Desmond Ridder. Granted, they have to list him as a quarterback, but they're talking about him as just an offensive weapon, right? So We know they got Bijan. We know they got Kyle Pitts there and a bevy of wide receivers. But I could see Desmond Ritter being along the lines of a guy that's going to move the chains with his legs. He's going to stack up 40, 50 yards, in week one and moving forward until defenses adjust. And I think Desmond Ritter in week one might be the cheapest, but the cheapest quarterback, but with the most upside based on price tag and what they're going to do in Atlanta. So give me Desmond Ritter. Well, what else did I say? Russell Wilson. And then when we look at Tampa Bay, for some odd reason, while I'm talking, Tom Brady's gone. Baker Mayfield's already talking all this trash, talking all this shit. He wants to I was embarrassing when I read that Baker Mayfield, he wants to retire a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Why I found that embarrassing? Because you just got there. You've already been moved around the league. Is he been a problem? Does he talk too much? Does he not read game tape and film and all that stuff? I don't know, but let's say Kyle Trask gets the bump in week one and he's the starter in Tampa Bay. I'm going to take that one there too, because I think there is some offensive offensive juiciness there, and he's going to be 6,500, 6,800 on FanDuel, almost dirt cheap for a starting QB in week one. So what I say, Russ, Ritter, and give me Kyle Trask. Let's go to running backs. What do you got going on over there?
Well, with running backs, that's usually a spot, especially in cash on DraftKings, where if I don't have two studs in my lineup, I definitely have one. And it's going to be interesting to see, because when you were talking about quarterback, you literally named the guys not at the top that I was interested in. I think Desmond Ritter could end up being a fantastic week one play. He's as close to free as you're going to get. He's 4,900, almost half the price of, the elite guys that I mentioned. So if I play him, I'm going to be out on Bijan. And that would be a guy that would interest me. The one thing also that I like about early on in week one, people's salaries are pretty depressed. A lot of times you see Christian McCaffrey on DraftKings, at or around 10K. He's at 8,700 right now. You're going to get to a point where, these guys are going to be up in that neighborhood. So you get some really good discounts early on. And I think that if you're not a veteran, if you're not somebody who plays a lot, I don't think that you realize kind of how cheap some of these guys are. And you can get away with building a little bit heavier early in the season. But, to kind of answer your question, I really like Nick Chubb. I think that, the fact that he really doesn't have anybody behind him now with Kareem Hunt gone, Jerome Ford isn't gonna take a whole bunch of carries there. They're gonna give Nick Chubb as much as he can handle. And Nick Chubb is almost surely a better play on FanDuel because it's not PPR. And Nick Chubb isn't going to be going around catching a bunch of balls. But we also used to say that about Derrick Henry. And last year, Derrick Henry all of a sudden started catching some balls. So we'll see. But, with Nick Chubb, as long as he gets himself in the end zone, you're looking good there. I'm still interested in Bijan. I would not play Bijan and Ritter together. So we'll see there. I mentioned Derrick Henry earlier. I think that even, the addition there of Hopkins probably makes Derrick Henry even better, because now they actually have an NFL caliber receiver out there that you have to focus on, which is just going to give a little bit more room for Derrick Henry, a guy who we've seen not have problems running through 8-man boxes as it is. So the more help they can get in the passing game, the better. A guy like James Conner, if you want to get a little bit cheaper, I think that Arizona is going to go very run heavy, especially without Kyler Murray there. So James Conner, he comes in 6,400. I think that's a really great RB2 play. We talked about Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask. On the same note, Rachaad White, somebody I'm very interested in. He's a PPR dream. He's going to get, a lot of work in the passing game. 5,500. I mean, if he ends up being your RB2 or your flex, I think you're in absolutely fantastic shape. If we want to keep working our way down a little bit, I think either Brian Robinson or Antonio Gibson, if you can get a feel for one of those guys, they come in pretty cheap. I think Elijah Mitchell is another guy who makes for an interesting play at only 5K. Don't have the numbers in front of me because it's not that type of episode. But when Mitchell and McCaffrey were both in there together, Mitchell put up some pretty decent points. So don't think that because McCaffrey's there and healthy, that's going to push Elijah out. He's going to be a very good value. Rashad Penny, guy that I've been absolutely just loading up on in best ball. I think you put him behind the best offensive line in football. If he's healthy, he's going to get the running work. That's a team who wants to run the ball. So I really like that as well. So I know I went a little bit long there, but there's quite a few running backs that I really do like. And like I said, the week one, in the first couple weeks the price tags get, diminished a little bit. So it's going to be hard to pick between these guys. As in cash, I can only pick 3 of them at most.
And I had a friend ask me about, a running backs, like a seasonal running backs question. And I have a quick story to tell, and then I'll go right into why I told you the story. What's the point of the story? He says, I have the 9th overall pick, and I'm thinking, which running back am I going to take there? Am I going to take, like Chubb, or who's going to be there at number 9? And I told him, probably not the right segment to say this, but I as it stands right now, for the near future in DFS formats and in seasonal formats, if I were to ask you a question, Dave, and say, what is the position in football right now that is always a sure thing week in and week out, which position would you say it is? It is. It would be
running back's the most consistent.
But I think right now, running backs, the way they come and go and all this nonsense that you don't want to pay a running back and the only team is going to win is if you're on a rookie deal with your quarterback and a rookie deal with your running back, something like that. I think not too long ago, maybe even as early as last season, the NFL has switched over to being, wide receiver, just bountiful wide receivers, right? That like the studs can't miss week in and week out. If you put, Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf in your lineups, you're going to be okay. So to me, starting as early as week 1 and even as early as this broadcast, I'm going to spend the first few weeks kind of moving some chips around in backup running backs and cheapy little running backs, and then just go heavy wide receivers in my flex spot. And if I have to go for the sure thing like Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews at tight end, yes, then I take the risk at quarterback and I pop in a couple young schlubs or something at running back. And I have a few of those, but one I want to start off with is in New England. Ramondre Stevenson looks to be a stud, right? You're going to hammer him into the ground. That's all well and good. You want to use him, have at it. I love the idea of Pierre Strong as well. You look at the New England Patriots backfield, and I know that you're like, Christy, this stuff just from the top of your head. No, I've been working on some content. I have some stuff written down kind of, but there's that backfield. It's not really the James White is gone, right? We could trust that guy for years on end, right? And when you look at Pierre Strong right now, they're going to give him a chance. I think he'd have to really mess up not to be their RB2. And again, as I said, they're not going to run Ramondre into the ground. And if they do, that's fine, but he can't get 100% of the touches out of the backfield. That the day and age of that kind of running back is gone. As soon as Derrick Henry leaves the league, that is gone. That day and age of that kind of running back is gone. The Marshawn Lynches and things like that. So give me Pierre Strong, who's probably going to be, I wouldn't even be shocked if he's like $4,900 or $4,800. And on FanDuel, last I looked, the cheapest you can get is like what, $4,500 for a running back. Tight ends can be like $4,000. So I like Pierre Strong. There's something about this rookie crop of running backs, and I'm not talking about Bijan or Jamar Gibbs here in Detroit. I'm talking about guys like Eric Gray in New York, who's going to be backing up Saquon, hopefully, fingers crossed. Danny McBride in Minnesota. What is he going to do? Him and Kenny Ngakoue. I love that little combo as a 1-2 kind of punch. When you in week 1, when you look at Minnesota, let me bring it up. I don't have the schedule. Minnesota's playing at home against Tampa Bay. Why can't you play 2 running backs from the same team? A rookie and Kenny Ngakoue, who was like, I believe he's like listed as safety as well. And when we keep going down that list, even in Carolina's kind of got nothing going on in terms of running back, but this Raheem Blackshear, he's going to get a ton of touches. So again, is this broadcast going to be of any, does it have any meat to it? Like when we go to week 1? No, but that was the whole idea behind the broadcast. Let's throw out some names. Let's get ahead of the curve. And one more guy who I believe if anybody can kind of take a ton of goal line work and just score double-digit touchdowns this season, it's Donta Foreman in Chicago. We know who else they have in that backfield, and I know what the people are going to say, and I'm going to get Justin Fields is their RB1, Chris. You got to leave it alone. But Donta Foreman is 6'1". He's 200 and something pounds. He's a bruising running back, and when thrust into action, like he was in Carolina, he made for a great play. He made half the season worth the bottom of the barrel articles last year because nobody cared to talk about him, right? And yet here he is, 100+ yards and a score, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, and you keep going there. So in Chicago, if they're wise enough, they're going to say, Justin, let's tone it down just a little bit with running around. Let's try and use your arm a little bit. Let's let these running backs shoulder the load or the burden here. So I love Donta Foreman in week 1, and out of all the running backs we named, probably Pierre Strong. So week 1 so far, I have Pierre Strong and Donta Foreman in my week 1 lineup. Let's go to wide receivers here, which you know where I stand, right? I mean, GPP or cash game or not, I'm going with a sure thing most weeks over anything. So who do you got, and why do you feel that way?
I do want to go back to running back real quick because, like I said, for as little as you and I have talked about this stuff, it is absolutely incredible how many things you're saying that I absolutely have firmly believed in. And Pierre Strong is one of those. I have him loaded up in best ball. He's only 4,200 on DraftKings. That's 200 more than the minimum. And I wouldn't do that in cash. But for MME, I think that could be a play that could help you take some down because his ownership, as it stands right now, I mean, obviously, if they sign Dalvin Cook or something, it's going to change. But as we sit here today on August 2nd, I love that play. Wide receiver. I do like to kind of do very similar to what we do at running back. I do like to make sure in cash that I have a stud. In a perfect world, I'm either going to pay for a stud running back and then either a stud tight end or a stud receiver. Very rarely do I pay up for a stud tight end. It has to be Travis Kelce in just an absolute optimum position. So usually, I'm paying up for a guy like Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase. As I look at the week 1 pricing, the little dummy lineup that I built, and again, you didn't know this, revolved around the Denver Broncos because, I don't know what the ownership's going to come in at this point, but I love the idea of week 1 playing Russell Wilson when everyone's down on him and going with either, Jerry Jeudy, going with the Cortland Sutton. I mean, I like
Marvin Mims, baby. When you were going to cut it to me, it's going to be all about Marvin Mims, but I digress. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I can't remember. I mean, I was going to double stack him and my choice was, do I want to go with Mims or do I want to go with Dulcich as my secondary stacking option? I went with Dulcich just because I did. I like the idea of correlating my tight end with my quarterback just, as a way to slip that position in and get correlation there. But anyways, I do like the Jerry Jeudy in week 1. If you want to go down, I mean, he's 6,600. So he's a little on the pricey side. Let's see, he's the 14th most expensive wide receiver. So nothing crazy, but he's not like cheap, if you will. You go down to find Cortland Sutton at 5,200. So $1,400 savings. Week 1, I know you're not really trying to necessarily have to focus on saving money like we do when we get into like week 10, week 11, week 12, and everyone's prices are jacked up. But that's something that I like. I've always been a Terry McLaurin fan. We'll see what happens with Sam Howell at the helm. But Terry McLaurin, every time you go and you look at target share, McLaurin's name is, hugely up in at least the top 10. The dude just gets targets. It's crazy. I still like Chris Olave. I think that'll be very interesting there with that matchup. Again, we'll see what happens with Derek Carr there. I think Calvin Ridley is interesting. I don't think I'm too interested in him for week 1. I'm a little bit risk averse there, but I do think it's interesting. Calvin Ridley, if his ownership is down, could be a very interesting MME week 1 play. I'd probably be a little more apt to go like Christian Kirk. Save the, what's the difference in price here? Save the $900. I mean, whatever. But I do like that. We obviously are going to have to spend down on guys as well. If I'm going to have a stud running back, I'm going to have a stud wide receiver. I'm putting tight end. and I'm probably going to have to at least half punt one of the wide receiver positions. And that's where we talk about guys like Romeo Dobbs. We talk about guys like Denzel Mims, Donovan Peoples-Jones. I mean, Rondale Moore is 4,200. I don't really get that. Rondale Moore is a guy who I think is extremely explosive. He's not the kind of guy who's just going to catch, 80-yard bombs where he's going to get games of, 2 catches for 80 yards. He's a guy who's going to get like 6 catches, 8 catches for, 60 yards. He gets a lot of screens and stuff like that. So in a PPR format, I really like that. DJ Shark, I think he's an interesting target out in Carolina. What's Bryce Young going to do? Who's he going to look towards? So those are some of the guys that, I have some interest in early on, kind of a little bit of a mixture for DraftKings.
Yeah, I mean, you left really nobody for me to talk about, but hey, I'll try. You went down the whole
You
list.
you can go first on tight end.
I've always loved Rondale Moore, but I don't know what the issue is with him. I mean, way back when he was a rookie in his, when he worked out in his 40 time, everything was just jumped off the page. We knew he was like a shorter of a guy at the position, but he just hasn't caught on. And now Arizona, if I'm not mistaken, drafted this kid, Michael Wilson, who, if I'm not, I'm just going to say it out loud. I said it first. Rondale Moore is nice, but I think by this time next month or by week 2 or week 3, I think Michael Wilson is going to be the better player. But I don't even want to say better player, but he's just going to be on the field more, getting some more looks here. We didn't talk about Elijah Moore going from the Jets to Cleveland, and they want to showcase him in Cleveland, and Deshaun Watson in his second year. I mean, that's a topic for another day with what he's done. I'm not here to judge anybody, grant all the nasty stuff I've done in my life, but Elijah Moore, that looks like a great matchup. Cincinnati right now, they lost in the Super Bowl, but hey, it's still a green plus matchup. Let's talk about Paris Campbell too. He went over from Indianapolis finally after all these years, stayed healthy, put it together, and then split. Now he's with the Jets. Now anything you read so far on Paris Campbell, and if you're anybody that's watching this video, I assume you've already done a few drafts, you've already tried a few things. Everything I've read says that the Jets want to make Paris Campbell a highlighted player. They want to bring him in and showcase. That's the word I'm looking for. And if he can hold together, then I love that idea in week 1. Paris Campbell, Elijah Moore, Romeo in Green Bay. That makes for a nice move. And one more guy here that so far has been 2 weeks since they've actually been on the field and had those weird, padded things on top of their helmets here, would have to be Quez Watkins in Philadelphia. If you're going to, spend a ton of dough on it hurts, and then maybe kind of half-ass it with running back, maybe go expensive or go the beastie route and go cheap as can be on running backs, then you can put in a cheap play like Quez Watkins, who, if I'm not mistaken, last year never over $6,500. He always was in that like $5,500 to $6,500 range, and so far he has been so flipping fast here. So look for Jalen Hurts to get over on him, and I'm not saying he's going to get you Terry McLaurin kind of target share here, but all it takes is one reception for 80 yards and a touchdown. He's already paid for a salary. You've already hit 2 times the value. Again, not going to do that 10 times in a season, but week 1, maybe we get over on some folks in week 1 with Quez Watkins, Elijah Moore, Paris Campbell, Michael Wilson, maybe. And I saw a really cool play earlier today from Alec Pierce in Indianapolis, where it looked like, he like that toe drag in the back of the end zone. And finally, everybody lit up when Anthony Richardson finally dropped it in the bucket here, and Alec Pierce went into the end zone. So again, nothing crazy. Just maybe if you want to watch this video back a couple times, God help you for doing that. But I'm just writing this stuff down, keeping it in the back of my mind. So when week 1 comes and it's pushed to shove, we got something for you. So Dave, I'm the gentleman here. You threw the opening to me. I don't mind. You can go first with tight ends. To be fair, I always fade the position to begin with, unless it's like a sure thing. Like, let's say Travis Kelsey's lining up against Arizona, who's
Yeah.
long been awful against tight ends, but there's not a lot of sure things in today's day and age. So right now I have some, like, not even under the radar. They're not even, it's going to be embarrassing for me to say a few of these guys, but hey, I've learned to live with it. So go ahead with some tight ends, Dave.
Yeah, with the tight end position, in cash, I don't like tight ends in the middle. I'm either paying up for Andrews or Kelsey, or I am just punting the position. And I like to spend as little as possible. Now, I mentioned earlier about I had Greg Dulcich in my lineup to double stack with Wilson. Well, that was in MME universe. I don't really want to spend $4,000 on my tight end. Like I say, I either want to spend, you know, $8,000-9,000 on a Kelsey or an Andrews, or I want to spend like $3,000 or less. So, in that mantra, there's a couple of guys that do stand out to me a little bit. And I guess maybe I'm a bigger fan of Tampa Bay than I think, because Kate Otten is the guy who stands out to me. That's a guy that Tom Brady trusted enough as a rookie that he was getting a lot of snaps at least. Now his target share would come and go, but if Tom Brady trusted him, I think that Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask would probably be wise to do so as well. And he's probably going to fly underneath the radar because obviously Mike Evans is a more popular name. Chris Godwin's a more popular name. I think a lot of people realize that Rachaad White's going to catch a lot of balls. So from the tight end position in cash for me, if I get a touchdown out of my guy, I'm golden. Like one catch for 1 yard and a touchdown, sign me up. I'd take that every single week. But I think Otten's got a chance for more than that. I also like a guy like Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki to me he's more of a slot wide receiver than he is a tight end. So if you're telling me that I can get a half-ass wide receiver for $3,200 that can, be a red zone target, I'm very interested in stuff like that. Just kind of throw a couple of names out there in this range. I think Noah Fant is interesting. I could see a touchdown catch there. I think Hayden Hurst is extremely interesting. We don't know where Bryce Young is going to go. I can see him liking, a safety blanket tight end. Again, gets in the end zone and we're absolutely golden. So I'll leave it there. I won't take too many pickings from you. What are you looking at for tight end?
Like I told you, I have some like off the radar people I might get made fun of, but this Chigawanyu kid in Tennessee,
Oh
in
yeah.
his second year, right? Last year, it was a beautiful thing, and you love just to see stories like that in general, right? Nobody ever heard of this kid, right? And he comes out of nowhere, he's playing well, and now people are talking about him, and when you can get in some trouble on social media, when you talk anything. And when we talk about tight end here, people are saying, well, I'd rather hold Chig over, just name a random tight end, right? And it's like you at first you're like, that sounds awful. But like your first reaction is like you're a dummy, but then when you look into it a little bit, you just got to keep an open mind. That's the thing. And everybody in the world would just keep an open mind. I think it'd be a more peaceful place, or things would flow a little bit more. But so let's talk about Chig, or we actually just did. I love Robert Tonyan coming over from Green Bay to Chicago. That same you mentioned it, like that safety blanket that Hurst is going to get, from a rookie quarterback. How many times is a play going to break down, for Justin Fields? And last year it was kind of sneaky, right? We knew this kid was quick, he could move, right? He could find the edge, he could get to the first down marker if he's got to touch the pylon with the football, inside the 5-yard line on a pinch, he could do that. I think now in his second year, the defenders know what's going on now, and that's the beauty of football. They know what you're going to do, and I know what I'm going to do, and let's meet in the middle here. So again, do I have a bug in the Chicago Bears, coaching staff? No, but I'm almost certain that they've talked to this kid and said, if you want to be around a little bit, you want to make some dough, you want to play some football games, slow it down. We're not reining you in 100%, but if you see a lane, take just 1 second to think about it. And instead of running in an extra touchdown or two this season, let's shave a couple of those off for Robert Tonyan, especially in week 1 as Chicago's hosting the Green Bay Packers, who I have
Revenge
no idea
game
what's
right off the
going
bat.
on.
Mhm.
I have no idea what's going on in Green Bay for the first without Aaron Rodgers for the first time and since 2005. Go down the list. Daniel Bellinger in New York. New York was a hotbed for me last year when it came to tight ends. And as you said, give me 30 yards and a touchdown. I'm going or shoot, not even the touchdown. You give me 3 catches for 30 yards. You're looking at 6 points. You're at
Yeah.
$4,000. I'm cool with that. As we go down the list, Michael Mayer, the rookie in Las Vegas. Anything goes in Vegas right now, in terms of even the quarterback. I have Aiden O'Connell, maybe getting some play at quarterback for Vegas this year. What they swapped out Jimmy G. He's gone there. But so to me, Michael Mayer is going to be a guy who, I hate to say a guy, he's a rookie. A lot of rookie tight ends don't get a lot of action. But again, I'm not looking for seasonal numbers here. We're just looking like a one and done kind of thing. So can we
Yep.
get a little like beginner's luck? Week one, you're $4,500. You catch a ball for a touchdown and 30 yards. You can put it in your mantle at home. Your first score here, give me that. So and so as it goes on, Tanyan, Bellinger, Chig Mayer, and I even love the idea. This is crazy. In New York, the Jets with Jeremy Rucker, right? His first year last year was kind of crappy. He had like a plantar fasciitis issue here, but this kid is big. He's local. He's from the New Jersey area, played at Ohio State. Hate that school, but I respect the game. I respect the talent. Jeremy Rucker with Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback now. I've seen some people talk about maybe I'm getting along in the tooth here, but people saying, I'm going to fade that whole situation. Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback. But if I've learned anything in my lifetime being an NFC North fan, watching Aaron Rodgers play, he makes stars out of tight ends, just being in the right place at the right time. And I think Jeremy Rucker will be that kind of. I think he'll be more surprising this season, especially in week one, than folks think they will be. Do we want to go down the rabbit hole that is defensive units in week one?
A
Given
little bit.
Yeah, have at it. I got a few I could toss. I normally one thing I will say, if you look at any major winning line, like the Millie Maker, they always have the number one scoring defense of that week. So people toss that position aside, but it's important. And there's a science to DSTs DSTs in DFS. And I love the whole, idea of it and what makes a popular DFS play for each week. So what are you thinking in week one? This is going to be interesting.
Yeah, we this may be the first time we disagree based on that little opening there. But for me, so we'll talk MME first because that's what you're going to talk about. For me, MME, if I've got a defense that's going to be chalk, I X them right on my player pool. There is not a chance in hell that I am playing a chalk defense. So, as much as I'm not paying up at defense either. So I'm not paying up and I'm not playing a chalk defense. I am playing a defense typically on DraftKings that's going to be 3,000 or less. And that's not a hard and fast number. That's just to give you a ballpark of where I'm looking. Cheaper, the better. So, the couple of names that I have that are at least on my radar, again, very early in the season to be talking about defense, but just game theory wise, we can kind of have that discussion. And if I work from the most expensive down, I'm looking at the Commanders at 2,800. And again, that just simply comes down to matchup. I'm looking at them facing Arizona. I don't know what we're going to see from that offense. So give me a couple of turnovers and, we're golden. Turnovers and sacks are gold for DraftKings, for defenses. You can't rely on touchdowns. Those are very random. But you can count on sacks and you can count on turnovers. So kind of same thing. Browns. I don't know if Joe Burrow is going to be there for week one. If he's not, $2,600 for the Browns defense, I'm playing cash. So I don't care what the ownership is. If Joe Burrow was out, I could see the Browns being just ridiculous chalk. So would not touch him in MME for that reason, but I'll load up on him, give him to me in cash. And then Cardinals. I don't know what we're going to see from Sam Howell in that offense. I'm only mostly interested in them because they're $2,500. I think I like the other two a lot better, specifically the Browns, but I don't know what we're going to see. And then last one we'll mention, and I can't believe I've talked about a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, or we've talked about a Tampa Bay Buccaneer in every section, but Tampa Bay, they're in Minnesota. No Dalvin Cook. The offense might be, might take a little bit to get their feet wet. I don't know. I can't imagine they're going to be very popular. So I think for an MME purpose, I think the Buccaneers could be a kind of sneaky way to get in there. They have a great defense. We know Kirk Cousins is prone to having iffy games. He throws a couple of, throws 2 picks, let's say, gets sacked 4 times, and you're paying off your $2,200 on DraftKings very easily. So that's my theory behind defense. I gave a couple random names kind of for cash. Let me hear what you got, Beastie.
Again, I've said it a few times that I love the idea of, or there's something going on, and it's all personal opinion, and maybe those are buzzwords, but Atlanta to me at home against Carolina, Ritter in his second year taking a big step, right? The offense is just, even last year, their offense, they lost some games, but their offense in general was fun. So that stadium overall is going to be buzzing and it's going to be fun. And Carolina's going to walk in, and I don't know, what people are going to expect, but I think Atlanta gets on the football. They're quick, they're young, they're fast, they're going to ball hawk, and they're just going to beat up the rookie at quarterback, the undersized rookie, if I'm not mistaken, who I'm not one to make short jokes. I'm a taller guy, 6'3", and so last thing I want to do is make fun of someone who's smaller, but 5'9" is more serious for him, if I'm not mistaken, at quarterback. 5'10", I don't know, but to me, Atlanta is going to make this kid's life a living hell. His first game as a professional starting quarterback. We move down the list. Denver is hosting the Vegas Raiders. And when all else fails, if Denver's at home, just consider him, because the air, right? You got, sometimes when the opposite team travels there, you get players or staff that have, autoimmune stuff. And obviously they're healthy adults and they can still active, but sickle cell, like they can't travel, they can't go up in the air. And I'm not trying to put down people with that are sick, or if they can't breathe that mile high air, let's smash them and run them into the ground. But when all else fails, look for Denver, because the air is thin and Vegas is coming in. Vegas goes from the desert to Denver in week 1. Who knows how that's going to shake out? So just from game theory, I like that you said that. Again, what I'm saying has no legs really. There's no numbers to be had right now. It's all just based on opinion, or as we played a long time. So maybe there's a little bit of, we've done it, right? So there's a respect factor. And for some odd reason, Miami goes to the Chargers, and we've always seen this, at least I have, correct me if I'm wrong, this time every year, the Chargers defense, as long as Derwin James is still there, right, as long as he stays healthy and he can just sit back and play center field, or just come up and pound you and smash you. Is Tua going to play in week 1? Maybe I look embarrassed for saying that, but Miami right now, they're in a tough division in the AFC East with Buffalo and New England and the Jets, and so that they can't lose too many games in general that are out of division games. Those are like going to be tiebreakers and such. But to me, I like the Chargers just from an offensive standpoint. And offense, are they going to, get so far ahead that Miami's going to have to take risks and chances? And we know they have Waddle, who's a star, who's a stud, but 1 or 2 players isn't really going to get the job done. And again, I've had people say, well, you look at Tennessee and New Orleans, or just pick Cincinnati at Cleveland. The over under is going to be like 50 points, 60 points. That's stupid. I don't care about the points scored against my opposing defense. It's sacks, it's interceptions, it's turnovers. Yep. I don't care about all that kind of stuff. So to me, game theory stuff, give me, Atlanta at home against Carolina. The Chargers are hosting Miami. And when all else fails, give me Denver at home against anybody in that, that air that you see, guys wearing oxygen mask because it stinks so much. So before we get out of here, Dave, what do you want to say? How are we gonna end this thing? And I might not even edit this out, just leave it in. It just, we're just having a blast.
I mean, at the end of the day, it comes down to this. If you've liked this video, this is a tame version of Beastie here and I. This is an episode that we literally did on the fly. Came up with it, last week when the pricing came out. I said, hey, let's get together. Let's do a quick little video. Let's let people know that we're together. Let's just get our feet wet. This is our first video together, even though we've known each other for.
We're not married. When he says together, we're not married, but we're together as, you get what I'm saying. Go ahead.
Yeah. But if you enjoyed this video, it really is only going to get better. And, the best way to get access to us, best way to get all the information you could ever want is to head on over to our Discord. The DFS portion of it, that is locked. So you do have to be a subscribed member to get there. But you head on over to fantasy6pack.net/plans. It's $10 a month to sign up. It's next to nothing. You will almost surely make that up just in the amount of money that you're going to win on top of whatever it is that you normally do. Just from listening to us. And it's more than just DFS. We've got so many guys over there have got you covered for dynasty football, redraft football. We've got baseball, we've got hockey, we've got PGA. I mean, you name it, it's all over there. So even just the Discord itself, in my opinion, well worth the $10 a month on top of, you're getting access to things that are completely irrelevant to this. My baseball dynasty rankings, they're behind the paywall there as well. There's all sorts of other things in there. But the Discord, I'm telling you, is so worth it. And I highly advise you to give it a crack. Check us out, see what you think. Give us a couple weeks, listen to what we got to say, follow along, ask questions, learn from us, let us learn from you. And together we have a big fun party and we just win more money.
And that's it. And before we get out of here, I know, like, before we, went live to tell the people here, we're like, well, 15, 20 minutes would be great. We've doubled that time. We're coming up on 45 minutes. And again, it's a tame version. And I'm happy to be here, with the six pack. You're somewhere where, your every, impulse is not told no. You want to write about it, you want to broadcast it, have at it. You got full creative control. You could do whatever you want, you could say whatever you want. It kind of reminds me of when Howard Stern left terrestrial radio and he went over to satellite radio. There is nothing off limits here in terms of what I can do, broadcasting and such. And lo and behold, I come over to the six pack because you guys want bottom of the barrel, which bottom of the barrel preseason AFC East is out now. Look for the NFC North bottom of the barrel to be out later this week or even over the weekend. But my first kind of big moment here with six pack is going to be the Thursday night football game, which is our Detroit Lions against Kansas City. So there's just a whole lot to look forward to. A whole lot of fun is going to be had. Make sure you check us out at Fantasy Six Pack. You can find Dave on Twitter at Corporal Eddie. It couldn't be any clearer down there. You can find me on Twitter at Detroit Beastie. We will talk to you soon and we will be back. Until then, be good, be safe. Talk to you later. Bye.